Today, we begin our 3-round 2026 NFL mock draft with trades. Just like the NFL draft, this is going to be split up into 2 days. Round 1, day 1 is today. Round 2 and 3 is on day 2. That is tomorrow. So let's get right into this. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. These are the players I love in the order that I love them. It is not predictive. It is just based off of my honest opinion. Full transparency as always. But let's get into this. If you want to see over 290 players fully broken down, the full big board, all the evals, stock reports, so each week who's doing well and who isn't, as well as rookie watch. Every single rookie that ends up taking a rep on the offense or defense ends up getting graded. So feel free to go over. It's $5 a month on the Patreon. And we built a community there that's approaching 70 people. So fantastic over there. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Number 1 overall, Tennessee Titans. I do think that this is going to be a spot that gets traded out of. Borgonzi, also somebody coming from a system that definitely loves to trade. So I think this is the prime opportunity. And we have 3 teams lurking in the top 6 that are going to be looking at a quarterback. I've traded up with the Jets before. The question is, should we try to do something fun with the Browns? The Browns will be getting some of the downfall or the fallout of whatever happens at number 3, but getting sloppy seconds is not always the best thing. Now, before we actually get into all the picks, I want to announce who we're going to be deciding is not coming out in this. That is also going to be in the description. So, players that we're not going to consider. Dante Moore. It's a very hot one, but it definitely looks, based on people who have inside sources, that he is not going to be coming out this year. If they make a run for the chip and win the chip, he gets the Heisman somehow with a late year stretch, then maybe we could talk about it. However, I just don't really believe that's going to be the case. So Dante Moore considered returning to school. LaNorris Sellers, same thing. John Mateer, same thing. And one last one, Darian Mensah, same thing. That's the quarterback room of the players who we'll be discussing that will be in that category. Wide receiver-wise, the only one that I'm going to enforce is Nyck Harbor. Big fan of his game from South Carolina. He will be considered as returning and transferring. On top of that, offensive line-wise, we're not going to be really doing any of that. Austin Seerveld, I'd consider it, but for the sake of this, I think he could come out as a high-tier guard. Some people really like him there. Corner, this is the last big one. It's Jermod McCoy. He's a true junior who has not taken a single rep this year. Just going to put that out there, probably not going to come out. Of course, if there's something else that pops up along the way, then we'll discuss it. But number 1 overall, we're trading out of this spot. The question is, with whom? And right now, it's between the Browns and the Jets. I don't think the Raiders have the proper offer on the table. But on top of that, I don't think the Raiders have the lack of issues to just drop a QB and call it a day. So I do think this is a 2-headed race between the Browns and the Jets. The best thing for the Titans is both have multiple first-round picks. Now, right here with the Browns, we have 3 and 20. That's a little bit more attractive than what the Jets have, which is 5 and 28. Now, I don't think you can get 3 and 20 together. I don't think that's going to be an effective buying price. So I do worry about that in terms of, for the Titans, if you want to get multiple firsts rather than going after the Browns and then being able to either get 3 and 20 and offer maybe 1 in, I don't really understand the gymnastics there. Maybe you get 135 and 67. I just feel like it's too difficult for the Browns specifically to make this deal with the Titans over something that's really straightforward, in my opinion, with the Jets. Now, you might say, oh, there's more picks that should be involved in here than just 5 and 28. If you guys want to end up saying that, they move back from 44 to 65, I think that's a fair deal. I'm curious. Are they going to make this less? Okay, I need to double check that. But to move up 4 spots, it will cost that future first, and we're going to be moving back as well with the Jets, which in my opinion is fine because we don't have that 3rd-round pick. And for the Jets, again, getting sloppy seconds is never a good thing. On top of that, if we are getting to pick number 4 territory, or if at 3 again, the Titans want to trade back again, because assuming there would have been the trade with the Browns, then I do think the Raiders would be calling up because the price is noticeably less than a 6-1 move. So Titans end up making a move. They lack picks as it is. The Jets end up, again, doing a 3-for-2 swap here and end up moving up to select their quarterback of the future. For me, Ty Simpson's quarterback 1, But right now, for the Jets specifically, first off, there's Fernando Mendoza to Goff comps. You already know Aaron Glenn, coming from having Jared Goff as his quarterback, could definitely like that. But on top of that, Mendoza has a significantly higher floor. With Ty Simpson, people say he's the most pro-ready. I think that there's just, maybe that's a little bit true to some degree. However, with Fernando Mendoza, you have a track record that makes it a little bit less dangerous. Like Ty Simpson does seem to have the skill set to work very well early on in the NFL. Fernando Mendoza has been to multiple systems that are completely different, having to learn whole entire new organizations, new teammates, and also taking a step up in competition while not losing a beat. In fact, getting better as a quarterback. So that is going to be a very safe option. And again, one of these top two teams needed to make this move. It was just between which one, because also I do think that the Raiders would be lurking. I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana, while I do have Ty Simpson at number 1. If the Jets are moving up and giving that type of draft capital, you need to make sure it hits. And Fernando Mendoza is still a very competent quarterback, one that I have a really good amount of faith in, but again, like I do think Ty Simpson has some traits that maybe I'll be a little bit more open to. I blend my board with realism. I like to give you guys my twist on a realistic mock draft, and I do think that realistically the Jets will evaluate Fernando Mendoza unless Ty Simpson has a rebound, because again, we're just coming off that Oklahoma game, which is why it stings a little bit more. Fernando Mendoza, the selection there at number 1. Number 2, New York Giants. Another spot that I would try to trade out of. I just don't think there's going to be this massive push to move up to number 2, because again, similar to my conversation with you guys a second ago about the Raiders at number 6 moving up to 1, the price is ridiculous. Every single time you go down pick by pick, the price gets essentially a second round pick cheaper. That's like a noticeable difference. Of course, it does change if you have multiple first round picks, but I will say that the Raiders are a team that I don't think has the draft capital to make it up into the top 2. 3 is where you start making that judgment call. But at number 2 for the Giants, if you have to stick and pick, I do think wide receiver would be the pick. Unless you want to, again, my dream is to trade out of this spot. I just don't think it's very realistic. I think it'd be cool, but unfortunately, if you guys don't have the number 1 pick. If you have the number 1 pick, it's a different story. But we're going to go wide receiver here. And I went Carnell Tate earlier in the week, and I think it's up for debate between Tyson and Tate. Now, Tyson, I will say, I think is going to be the pick. All the injuries that people say are injury red flags, they're not related. So it just could be a string of bad luck, which happens. I mean, sometimes guys get streaks of good luck, sometimes streaks of bad. So I think it will be definitely dependent on the doctors. But something that ended up switching my mind after taking Carnell Tate earlier this week is the amount of people talking about how Jordan Tyson ended up playing with Cam Scatterbo. So it's like, it's cool to bring in teammates that already have chemistry and, both of them are phenomenal. You're just kind of choosing which flavor of ice cream you like, not whether you want to eat, ice cream or cheesecake. Like regardless, you're going to be doing a good decision. I guess both those situations, you're doing a good decision, but Jordan Tyson's going to be the pick here out of Arizona State. Again, I just did not really feel like the value was there for a trade down. Could have gotten ballsy with the Raiders, but, sometimes the price is not worth paying. At number 3 for the Cleveland Browns, this is quick and easy. We'll see if Shedeur, Mr. Legendary, bounces back from a pretty horrific outing as, the first week where he didn't have reps with the ones. And that's literally every single backup quarterback in history. I hate to say it, some backups come in and end up kicking ass. So hopefully, for y'all's sake, he ends up doing that this next week versus the Raiders. If he does not, this is 100% going to be Ty Simpson. But for me still, I'm going to be going Ty Simpson there. Quarterback out of Alabama. The only reason he does not go at number 1 is because of the recent slip up versus Oklahoma, where he still ended up having near 75% completion percentage. And again, the biggest issue right now that we're starting to wonder is, like, how good is Ty's pocket presence, because he's continuously getting hit where he's not protecting the football and causing, sack and fumbles. So that's the question there, because I think when it comes to processing how to step up into the pocket, move through the pocket, not many do it as well as Ty Simpson, but it is essentially sensing that pressure that he does not seem to time very well, or at least understand very well, which has gotten him hit while the ball is unprotected and has gotten a couple turnovers that do cost you the game. Number 4, New Orleans Saints. I've been consistently adamant on this, and I'm going to continue to. I'm going to go Arvell Reese, edge rusher / linebacker out of The Ohio State University. I think Arvell could be a linebacker or an edge, but in Brandon Staley's system, 3-4, I think he's going to be a fantastic option on the line of scrimmage, but it also has the ability to go off the line of scrimmage. Number 5 for the Tennessee Titans, and again, I think this is pretty much scratch with what I ended up doing with my no trades mock earlier this week, but just with a little fancy switcheroo, we're going to be going Tennessee Titans with Ruben Bain Jr. here, edge rusher out of Miami. There's just certain players that you can't pass on, and again, the top 5 feels pretty much solidified, plus, a variable of which wide receiver goes to the Giants. There could be some variations in there, but, Ruben Bain Jr., a super high floor edge rusher. Maybe you're not getting the ceiling play with him, but you just saw what happens when you try to take somebody who's a little bit more of a ceiling play with Femi Oladejo, and he's someone who needs more development time. To be competitive, you need to hit the ground running. You could end up going wide receiver at 25, but at 28, I feel pretty happy with that spot as well. Ruben Bain Jr. just brings a super high floor to the edge position that you just do not have right now, and that's a big impact to your team. Number 6, Las Vegas Raiders. Quarterback would have been nice, and again, if you missed the start of the episode or the description, I am not having Dante Moore come out in this due to external people saying that inside sources talk about him returning to school, and I could use him easily, and it could just be such an easy pick right now, but I think it's disingenuous for you guys spending your time trying to see, what's a quick little fun glimpse at the prospects and what should happen in April, and I end up giving you something that right now does not look like it's in the cards. I feel like it's a little disingenuous. So I ended up announcing at the start of the video who's coming out, who's not, based on this video. But I've been really in on the Caleb Downs tree. I think that I would end up, for the sake of keeping things original, opting out of that for this episode, because I do think, even though Pete Carroll has had a history of really loving safeties, there are some very good value safeties you can get at 38 and 70 respectively. So I think this is a great opportunity to go after another player who I have at number 2 overall on my board, and Peter Woods. Getting a solid high floor, high ceiling defensive interior is never a bad idea. Interior pressure is extremely important, and I think Peter Woods would be a fantastic foundational piece to build upon there in Las Vegas on the defensive line. Offensive line's ass cheeks, I agree. Spencer Fano's an option, but I will also say some people just do not believe Spencer Fano is a guaranteed tackle. I am one of those people as well, and personally, I don't think I want to run that risk at number 6. Number 7, Washington Commanders. This needs to be a trade down. Simply put, we need to find somebody who has balls. And honestly, one that does have balls is the Minnesota Vikings. They need running back. They need center. They can end up getting a swing tackle later, and they need safety. I do think that the positions that the Vikings need are well represented by actually what PFF says is needed. I'm curious what the price would be for this, but the Vikings actually for once have picks. I remember last year, I was like, we'll see what happens there. But I mean, this is a prime opportunity for the Vikings to be able to make a big splash play here. And the way I would handle this deal would be 13 and 45 and 97, or actually 77, and get 7 and 71 in return. Small move up in the 3rd round. I don't think that moving up 26 spots, I don't think that would happen. I don't think it's very realistic. But for me, I think the price for Minnesota, because that 2nd round pick could either be a corner, could be a safety. I do think actually corner's not a bad idea here, but for me, the heart of this Minnesota Vikings team, defense-wise, for a long time has been Harrison Smith. I think it's very, very important, especially because you're only pretty much losing 45. And for the Commanders, I think it's invaluable. Maybe we'll toss in another pick just because I already know some Commanders fans are gonna flip their shit. But we'll go 13, 45, 77, 173 for 7 and 71 respectively. I think the most important thing to do is to go after Caleb Downs here, because this is the lifeblood of your team. You've also been able to acquire corner outside of the draft very, very well. So I do think that the most important thing to go after is the best player, and that is Caleb Downs. So it's going to be crazy. Oh, you're trading a second round pick for him. But at the same time, like, what are you going to be doing in the second round? You're going to be drafting a safety. So, I mean, if we're sitting there at 13, maybe we get lucky and get Jeremiah Love. There's a chance that we don't. At the same time as well, you're going to be spending a number 13 overall pick on a running back. So, you're talking about a running back and, a tier 2 safety versus a tier 1.1 level safety here. And Caleb Downs. Could have talked about Mansour Delane there as well, but I do think Caleb Downs is special. I think he's on the tier of Kyle Hamilton, maybe just a little bit lower, but for a team that desperately needs, and I also like getting aggressive. This is a team who is aggressive. We're going to go Caleb Downs there for the Vikings. Number 8 for the Los Angeles Rams. This is quick and easy. We're going Spencer Fano, right tackle out of Utah, mainly to give a massive middle finger to the Cardinals, because I do think now you have to debate whether you're going to go after Francis Mauigoa or go after a different position of need. Number 9 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I've said this several times. I'm going to be extremely succinct with this. None of the edge class fits with the Bengals, what they do organizationally. They look at athleticism, they look at measurables, and they look at size. So measurables, arm length, especially arm length. TJ Parker, no. Keldrick Falk, not athletic. David Bailey, not big enough. Cassius Howell, not big enough. Romello Height, not big enough. LT Overton, not athletic enough. R. Mason Thomas, not big enough. Quincy Rhodes, not good enough for number 9. So right there, we just went through and burned through all the top of the class. I want to do that succinctly. You need more boundary corner help. Mansour Delane's here. I don't want to overplay this hand. I don't want to just go a little too crazy, but I think you just need to lock in and go for it. Mansour Delane, the cornerback there out of LSU, most dominant lockdown boundary corner in the entire country. At number 10 for the Arizona Cardinals. This is a much tougher position, but with Carnell Tate on the board, it is very hard for me to say no, because you want someone who could stretch the field. Not many players have the deep route running ability that Carnell Tate does. I'm not talking about every single level of the field route running. I'm talking about the nuances in route running downfield, the deep routes. And on top of that, a 90+% completion percentage, or down in contested catch, is ridiculous. We're going to go Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of The Ohio State University, pair him back up with Marv, and call it a day. It's a fun little curveball that I didn't even really think about being there, because I'm used to taking him at number 7. Number 11, we have the Miami Dolphins. And again, pretty tough position to be in. The question is there a player that some teams would want to move up for? Jeremiah Love, I think the price of a move up for Kansas City would be a 3rd round pick. That's just a little too expensive, in my opinion. Again, we could talk about, especially since Joe Mixon's going to be out for the entire year, could the Texans be in the mood to try to move up for Jeremiah Love? I know they're aggressive. I know they like to trade. I don't think it would be for Jeremiah Love. If I'm going to say anything, it would be for offensive line. So I'd be talking maybe Caden Proctor, because I also know you guys have made this very clear, because I haven't been drafting this way for the Texans. They're very much a big school team. And I do think Caden Proctor for guard actually kind of makes a lot of sense for them. So that means I'm going to stay put. Panthers, I don't see it. Same thing with the Lions. So I just feel like the Dolphins are in a very tough spot. You have a lot of draft capital as it is. God bless. And yes, if you guys are wondering, I did make sure I added the pick for Jalen Phillips. So I will say here at number 11, I'm going to go back to the wide receiver core, because I think we're underrating Mekhi Lemon at this point. He's not just someone who's in the slot. I think he's a very, very good wide receiver who has nuances to the game that polished NFL wide receiver ones have in their skill set. Tyreek Hill is going to be gone. This team needs consistency on the boundary and in the slot as well. Mekhi has the route running that probably nobody in this draft actually can match. I mean, there's great route runners, so it is debatable with Tyson, but Mekhi Lemon has just such high IQ attacking blind spots and knowing how to fake defenders out in a way that, especially for a team that's rebuilding. You need to have those players who can naturally separate even when the play doesn't have the scheme for them to just get open. This is when you are actually covered by defenders. Can you get open? Makai Lemon, the answer is hell yes. And again, we're seeing right now that wide receiver is translating to the NFL faster than ever. Rookies are able to make huge impacts, get thousands of yards, not thousands, but over 1,000 yards with relative ease. So they're transitioning extremely quickly, which makes them an even bigger impact position. And when you look at the wide receiver contracts, fringe wide receiver ones are making over $30 million a year. It is a very expensive position to have as a fringe wide receiver one. So this is saving you essentially $30 million a year, while on top of that, getting a stud in Makai Lemon. Number 12, Dallas Cowboys. It's the question that you need to ask yourself here is, do we go Jeremiah Love or do we go after someone like Keldrick Falk to replace Marshawn Kneeland? And I do think Keldrick Falk's a lot more likely of an option. However, there is a third option, and one I very well might exercise because I love edge to this team. Pause. But there is a position that needs help, and it is corner. And the reason why I'm considering corner is this. I'm looking at what the Washington Commanders could do next. If I go an edge, there's a lot of them that are very similarly talented. I'm not weakening the Commanders by doing this. In fact, I'm planning on trading back with the number 24 pick and probably going into the second round. And when I end up doing that, there's going to be some great edge rushers there. I don't feel the threat there. But on top of that, I also am not weakening the pick for the Commanders. Secondly, the Commanders easily could be going after a corner in this class. And even though Brandon Cisse has had some pretty tough times as of the last game, that's the only reason I'm not taking him in the top 10. And that is 100% the pick I would make for the Commanders. And if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, the one thing I do not want is the Commanders secondary to get even stronger, because right now it's a massive weak point. And if you end up allowing it to become a strength, you could be dealing with a team under Dan Quinn's leadership that could bounce back in a way that you don't want. So I'm going to weaken this team by going after Brandon Cisse here, because I do think in the right system, he shows out and is an absolute superstar corner one. And again, end up having a bad week, but he's going up against probably 2 to 3 first-round wide receivers at Texas A&M. Maybe it's a wake-up call. If he doesn't rebound from it this next week, then we can have a discussion whether it'd be worth it. But also the Cowboys need boundary corner. So it kind of all works out that way. And Jeremiah Love would have been great. At the same time, I do believe that, this is also an organization that has maximized pretty much chump change at running back and has provided RB1 value. No, you don't have to exactly spend that on Jeremiah Love. So it's a good move if you do go Jeremiah Love, but I also think it's a smart move if you don't. You can't really go wrong in that situation so long as you have a good contingency plan at running back, whether it's keeping Javonte or being able to draft someone a little bit later. At number 13 for the Washington Commanders, again, this is just such an easy spot because you can't really go wrong. You can just get mad about going one player over another. And, the best part about this is you got David Bailey here, who's now, I think the Commanders are very flexible on the route they go. The problem with David Bailey, and this is something that you guys need to do your own research on, don't just listen to me. I posted videos that back up my decision and my opinion on David Bailey. I do not think of him as a first-round player. He is outside of my top 32. He is in my 40s because I do see some major off-field character red flags. So he assaulted a cameraman after the Arizona State game. Go check it out. The video's there. You can literally see it happening. On top of that, you can also see this happening 2024 NC State, where he's curb stomping a player on the ground after the play. There's something not exactly right, because people claim David Bailey's this great guy, but he has these weird slip-ups. You can end up having your own analysis on it. I'm just telling you mine. You might say I'm full of shit because, it's football, it's a combat sport. I respect the fact that if you think that's something that you wouldn't really care too much about, and it's like, this is a contact sport, players are going to have some anger issues, I respect that. That's just not how I process it. So For me, I also have seen this past year where you see some guys with multiple issues off the field, they do tend to fall a little bit. So I am going to end up having that happen. So if you guys are wondering why not David Bailey this high, that's the reason why. I do think Keldrick Falk's a really intriguing option here because he's the highest floor and you can build a lot around him based on this edge class being a little bit smaller. You can end up drafting certain players like a Damon Wilson and Keldrick Falk would be lightning and thunder. And we do have pick 45. Remember that. It's pick 77 as well. So you can get multiple edge rushers and get really good value for them. And I like that. I like to go after the safer player here with Keldrick Falk, who's going to bring a good amount of size and a good amount of run defensibility with still some pass rush upside, while you also can then continue to not worry about limitations with the other edge rushers. We're going to go Keldrick Falk at 13 for the Commanders, 14 for the Baltimore Ravens. They usually go best player available. Jeremiah Love would be fucking nuts. That would be crazy. Part of me wants to do that. I am not going to, but I do think that there's something in me that's like, ooh, like Ravens fans, I want to hear your thoughts on that because King Henry doesn't have too much time left. Jeremiah Love on the Ravens would be kind of crazy. So I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. As a matter of fact, though, I do feel like this is a good position to trade down if we can, because I'm not seeing anything that's like mind-bogglingly like crazy for the Ravens here. And with Jeremiah Love sitting here at at number 14 and knowing what the Chiefs would try to do, as the Ravens, it's in my best interest to call other teams and say, do y'all want this dude? Because I don't want to see him on the Chiefs, and I don't think y'all do either. And for that reason, I'm calling up the Houston Texans. Caserio, brother, you like a good trade. So do I. My name is Eric freaking DaCosta, and I'm going to negotiate a bomb-ass deal here. And that bomb-ass deal ain't going to be too expensive. So as a Steelers fan, I remember this distinctively. Pick 17 to 15 with the Jets for Broderick Jones. All right, that's a little bit of PTSD, but it was for pick number 120. We're just sending pick number 116. I mean, you could try to squeeze out like a 246 out of the Ravens. I mean, sure, go for it because it's technically a little bit higher value. Like, okay, we'll toss in 107 instead. Like, ooh, crazy. But we're going to make that move there with the Texans because even though I love me some Woody Marks, trade up for him as well. I do think that, first off, it's in the AFC's best interest to fuck over the Chiefs. Love you, Chiefs fans. But I do think if you're sitting there through the lens of the Ravens, you are making a strong decision to do everything you can to make the playoffs easier on you. And maybe the Texans can try to make a push now, but what you can guarantee is that the Chiefs will not have somebody who is a true RB1 at the helm. And so we're going to go Jeremiah Love with the Texans. And it's also, again, with Joe Mixon having his whole spiel, possibly being out for the rest of the year. I saw him say, like, Ian, how do you know better than me? We need obviously some clarification on that. Dude's been sitting out for the majority of the year anyways. So, it's like you haven't been very much help in the first place, bud. But this team definitely needs to go after some future running back value. And as much as I want to get more of a bruiser, I do think it's also the best case for all the AFC teams to limit the Chiefs on Jeremiah Love. But if the Chiefs are staying there at 15, I think it's too close of a proximity to the Buccaneers to try to move back and play some fun games and get some draft capital. We're going Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. Just again, tight end centric team, great after the catch, untapped potential, showed us once again what he could be. It's just a super weapon there. Good to see Kenyon Sadiq finally bounce back, and he's at number 15. At number 16 for the Baltimore Ravens. Remember what I told you a couple minutes ago when we were talking about David Bailey, how, certain players end up slipping a little bit because of personality. While I may have David Bailey outside of the first, I think it might just be something that is a decision maker between maybe two players. It might be the last factor they consider, where Keldrick Falk, David Bailey, they're like, you know what? Keldrick doesn't have that issue. We're going to go Keldrick. The Ravens don't give a fuck. Like they said, Mike Green, your answers to what happened off the field were not super satisfactory, scared off a lot of teams, dropped you to the second. We're happy taking you where we feel you're a steal. And so we're going to go David Bailey here, edge rusher out of Texas Tech for the Baltimore Ravens. Just call it a day. Number 17 for the Carolina Panthers. By the way, I respect also Vega and CC Mauigoa. I respect both of those moves because I think CC moved into guard to replace Failele. I think it's a great move. Same thing with Vega. But at number 17 for the Carolina Panthers, I think that boundary corner is a big position that's underrated for them. Avion Terrell would be on my target list, but you guys pointed this out very well. And again, I love talking with y'all. You point out stuff that I would never even think to look at. You guys don't draft Clemson players. So it's fair to say maybe you just don't like that as an option. I do think with Francis Mauigoa on the table, I think there are teams that should be at least looking to move up. The problem is there also isn't that many teams looking for their right tackle right now or a guard to the point where they would move up knowing you can get Vega or you can end up getting Emmanuel Pregnon. That's actually kind of tough because I really do like CC Mauigoa. I think he's a quality offensive lineman. And honestly, for the Panthers, I don't think this is a bad idea either. Honestly, putting CC at guard until Moton needs to be replaced, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. Because I sense it. I sense it in my bones. And for that, I got to keep some things fresh because I don't think there's a really great pick here. Just, full transparency. I don't really think the receivers on the board provide enough value because it's a steal to go after a great weapon like Mackay. I'm going to go for Francis Mauigoa because he's going to play a high tier, possibly Pro Bowl level guard for you. But he also could be the contingency plan long term for Taylor Moton. And that could end up being an enormous asset that we haven't really thought of. I've tested now multiple times, back-to-back weeks with CC Mauigoa to see how it goes. I mean, technically could have done it with the Chiefs too, but Kenyon Sadiq's just a freak. But yeah, we're going to go CC Mauigoa, tackle out of Miami there at 17. But he's going to be playing guard for you guys for the short run. And that is kind of what a lot of people think of him as a projection to guard with a tackle upside. And that's actually perfect for what you guys are doing. And what you guys need. Number 18, Detroit Lions. And a lot of good players here. Again, I do think that this is a team that should focus on left tackle if possible. Like Caden Proctor, I was going to look at him for the Texans. Again, I was just like, we disarmed the Chiefs of Jeremiah Love. Call it a day. I do think there's the probability that they go, like, Caden feels like a Detroit Lion, especially with how Alabama used him as like a gadget and stuff. You already know that they're going to like this guy more as like a Dan Skipper type. And his ability to run the run block as well, the way he can move people, is going to be something that you look positively towards Penei Sewell and say, well, we can end up like utilizing that strength to help out the run game as he's polishing up as a pass blocker. I do think too many teams are going to be intrigued, especially even you look at the Chargers with Caden Proctor. I think it's too much of a risk to pass on, so we're going to go after Caden Proctor at number 18. At number 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of my moves have been to disarm said Buccaneers. Like, I'm like, Kenyon Sadiq, take out that. Like, we got to make sure there. David Bailey, took him out. So there's just, there have been some calculated moves to make sure that we're like weakening the opponents that we'll face. But sitting in the GM chair for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think linebacker is very important. I think edge rusher is extremely important. I don't think wide receiver is off the table either. And I think those are the three positions I'd want to look at. But the fourth is a super dark horse one. It is boundary corner because Jamel Dean's up for a contract. And it is kind of important to have really good boundary corners. Now, if we look at the defensive backs that you guys have drafted in the past couple of years, just last year, you got Ben Morrison. I mean, Tyke Smith was a couple of years ago. Jacob Parrish this past year. Like, you got some physicality with those players. Not necessarily the biggest size in the world, but physicality. And I think that's very important. It's a very important trait for you guys to go off of. So, if you want to pass on it this round, you could try and hope that Davison Igbinosun gets to 51. But again, you guys are losing a top tier starting corner and a part of your identity. And to keep things fresh, I want to change it up from the standard, I'm going to go Sonny Styles here, then an edge rusher in round 2. I don't like the corner value in round 2. So I don't want to trade up either just to get a tier 2, tier 3 corner. So I'm going to get a tier 1. And that's between Avion Terrell, Colton Hood, Keith Abney. I don't think Keith Abney will test out well enough to meet the physical thresholds that the Buccaneers are going to look for in replacing Jamel Dean. So it's Colton Hood, Avion Terrell. Avion Terrell, it has been a multi-year starter and has been very, very reliable, even at a smaller size. Even though he's not like the smallest guy in the world, 5'11", 180. I will say, though, Colton Hood can kind of quell those issues. He's young. He's 6 foot and an additional 15 pounds heavier. I think that there's a strong chance you can go after either of these guys. I'm going to go after Colton Hood based on how young he is as well. It's going to be a huge asset given the amount of experience and the multiple systems he's been to. I think it would be great for him in terms of the youth of his body as a redshirt sophomore rather than a true junior. But again, that's not the biggest deciding factor. It is, the build makes a lot of sense. At number 20, Cleveland Browns. So first pick, Ty Simpson, sticked and picked. I am one to look at wide receiver, which you do have Concepcion, Boston, and Chris Bell here. Those are the three receivers that you're going to be talking about for the next couple picks. Then on top of that, offensive line. Caleb Lomu. I mean, it's kind of hard to complain about a top-tier offensive tackle. Caleb Tiernan. Like, you have two really good players here. Sierraveld is someone who's going to be a guard. Dunker is going to be a center. Gooseby is extremely underdeveloped. Isaiah World's not worth it. So it is a significant drop-off, especially at tackle. Wide receiver, I do feel at 35, we could try to make a move up, maybe. I have a sneeze incoming. My dumbass does not want to have to scrub it out of the video. We're going to tough this one out. We're going to go offensive tackle. Whew. You know how hard it is to resist a sneeze? It is a freaking nightmare. But Caleb Lomu is going to be the choice. He is somebody who I think realistically will be more of the highly sought after a choice over Caleb Tiernan. You can't really go wrong with each, but Caleb Lomu, the selection there for the Browns. For the Steelers at 21, I think boundary corner, wide receiver, quarterback are the moves. And once again, Dante Moore considered returning. Same thing with LaNorris and John Mateer, as well as Darian Mensah. So those of y'all who are wondering, that's why I'm not going to be talking about quarterback here, because I just don't think there's a quarterback that's worth that. Denzel Boston makes a lot of sense. Casey Concepcion makes a ton of sense. My issue with KC, the drop rate. Boston, nothing really. I mean, I think he fits very well. But I do think Chris Bell's better. Chris Bell's a better route runner. He's better built at 6'2", 220, and he can burn. So it's very hard, and I have the pleasure in 2 days. Yes, 2 days of seeing Chris Bell live. And I can't wait because he's going to be so fun to watch. I do think corners for SMU could get kind of sliced and diced by him. So I'm super duper stoked. Corner is something that I would very heavily consider. Like very heavily. But by pick 53, we're going to be in a completely different tier of wide receiver. This team needs to have something going for it. We're going to go Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville, number 21. Number 22, Los Angeles Chargers. If I can, I actually kind of want to trade back because I think whether I get Vega, whether I end up getting Emmanuel Pregnon, it's a good opportunity to do so. The question is who would be trading up? And it would be maybe a team looking for TJ Parker. But even if you're going to go after a TJ Parker, there's still some very good edge. To be fair, not many of them are in the 260 plus range. The Bears could get aggressive here. Even though TJ doesn't fit Dennis Allen's 6'5" threshold, but he does fit the 260 threshold. Maybe that would end up at this point being something they're intrigued with. I also think that the Bills should try to jump and get Sonny Styles because I do think the Cowboys is sitting at number 24. It's a good idea. Even the Niners could be open to a linebacker in Sonny Styles there. I do know that it's not going to be super fun to trade with the Bills in division. But I also think, let's look at what the Bills are doing, and technically they're on right now, but I'm electing to make this instead of watch that for you guys. But you have a good slate of picks. I mean, I don't think this is a very expensive move at all. I think 22 to 26 is probably about that pick 126 in value, and I think that would be perfectly reasonable. To jump up and get Sonny Styles, I think it's worth it. We're going to get pick 126. It's a good bolstering for the Chargers as well. And I don't really feel like we're going to be losing out on anything for LA. But the Bills have jumped up and see Sonny Styles available here. I am regrading the entire linebacker class and actually might have a video on that out before even quarterbacks. But Sonny Styles is right now my linebacker 2. Of course, Arvell Reese is included in said list. So Sonny Styles, he does have a huge bust factor to him. I do want to be perfectly clear about this. Sonny Styles is going to be very dependent on where he goes. There's a huge bust factor with him. Like, he has the ability to be the most overrated player in the entire country. But he also, in the right system, could be a super weapon. So it's just, every player has a hit or miss opportunity, right? But there's just some that you just see it as one or the other, and it's very much not much in between. Sonny Styles is one of those players. If I'm going to be honest, I regrade Anthony Hill today. Anthony Hill might be the most overrated linebacker I've studied based on the hype he gets. He is someone who I have as like an early day 3 to mid day 3 linebacker. Lower value position, of course. But I just don't. Like, I've seen the stats and I've seen him like on the game tape, but when you actually sit down and watch him specifically, he disappears. I just got to throw that out there. He disappears in a very scary way. Linebackers cannot disappear. You have to be a pain in the ass because the NFL offensive linemen are 1,000 times better than what you're facing here. The NFL wide receivers are 1,000 times better blocking wise than most of the guys you'll ever see in college. The tight ends are 1,000 times better than in college. So if you disappear versus those guys, what the hell are you going to do versus the best? Now, I do still see some flashes with Ant Hill. Like, during one of the last drives versus Georgia, he ended up having some really good run stops. But the inconsistency is terrifying. And very similar to Sonny Styles, I think this linebacker class is scarily scheme specific. Like, I cannot determine how good a team is, or how good a player is going to be. But at number 23 for the San Francisco 49ers, I do think there's the opportunity to go after someone like Caleb Tiernan, kick him into guard, and have him be the long-term left tackle. I just don't know if the Niners are going to scheme like that. I don't think they're going to do that unless you have a player of the caliber of Caden Proctor. I just don't see that being the case. I do see them continuously investing in the edge core. They luckily have an amazing coach on the defensive side, Robert Saleh, that makes it very edge rusher friendly. This essentially would be Jermaine Johnson. And that's good value here. And TJ Parker is 265. He has a really good skill set. And he's just kind of putting it all together still. Some people get really grouchy, want to put him as a late second. I'm not there. I respect some of the people who have him as late as that. But I was the guy who hated him compared to the consensus coming out in the year. Feels almost like JT Tuimalau-esque. It's like, why am I going to bat for someone that I ended up being batted for not liking, And but I still think TJ Parker's a phenomenal edge rusher. I mean, top tier in terms of both the statistical side of pass rush win rate and run stop rate. But I like to use that as a reference and not an actual reason. And you look at TJ Parker, he's athletic. People will try to say he doesn't have a good motor, but you watch players on the field and you can tell who doesn't have a good motor. By the way, Anthony Hill jogging quite a few times. Just got to stick that little dig in there. TJ Parker never did. So for the amount of, I love to get on players who have bad motors. Love it. I just, I crave that shit. TJ Parker never stood out that way to me. And I actually really like how he plays. So TJ Parker, the selection there at 23. Cowboys, 24. Already took Brandon Sisse out of South Carolina. By the way, we have some people, some friends of the show who are African who are helping me with the pronunciation. God bless you guys. By the way, some of the African names are so fucking badass. It does make me sometimes wonder, in another life, would I be named something cooler than Alex? At least it's only Alex. At least I'm not just a standard Alexander. It's a little bit better when it's just straight up. Because then, unless they want to rage bait the fuck out of me, no girlfriend or wife is going to be like, Alexander. Ain't none of that shit, honey. Smack the hell out of you. Not physically. We don't do that. Domestic violence is not okay. Seek help if you think it is. But regardless, I want to trade out of this spot. You got Casey and Denzel Boston still here. Especially Buffalo, I traded out for Sonny. You could have ended up sticking and trying to pick a wide receiver. Also, by the way, no guarantee of that. So just FYI. Also, the Bills, they're going to be an attractive destination for free agent wide receivers, and round 2 exists. So don't trip too much. But at number 24, I do think with the wide receivers available, we need to make a pretty decisive move. And the question is, who needs wide receiver? So the Titans luckily have 28 and 33. I'm very happy with that. I also see that the Browns have number 35. And the Browns just need to get ballsy sometimes too. You do need a wide receiver desperately. I can guarantee you one of them is going at 28. I almost would be open to two of them, but I mean, if you end up seeing Denzel Boston available or Casey Concepcion, I would not put it out of the realm of possibility that the Rams nor the Patriots would be open to that. I just got to throw that out there. So I'm going to move up with the Browns. You have a lot of draft capital. We didn't use it in a move up in the first place. And for the Cowboys, I think this is an amazing opportunity to recomp your draft picks. So 103 will definitely be a part of this. Remember, this is an 11 spot move up, which is expensive. It is expensive. So I do think this would require probably a future fourth, maybe a future third as part of this deal. But for the Browns, what you're getting is access to a wide receiver that shouldn't be available outside of the top 15. And we might have another great class next year. But at the same time, what you're going to be doing, I mean, unless you want to give up pick 67, which personally to me, I feel like that's just a little bit much. This allows you guys to have a bit more flexibility. And for the Cowboys, since you ended up giving a future one, this allows you to get a little bit of future capital back. But for the Browns, an 11 spot move up will cost you, and you're getting access to freaking amazing wide receivers. Now, the question is, do you want KC or do you want Denzel? Both are phenomenal. Both I'd be happy with. I'm going to go after Denzel Boston because it's the higher floor option. And again, now you're getting Ty Simpson, Denzel Boston, and Caleb Lomu. That's a three-headed horse with fifth-year contract possible. So pretty much 5-year contracts that are cheap at three very expensive positions that you're getting all very quality starters. That's how you rebuild an offense right there. Get a top-tier quarterback, top-tier offensive lineman, especially left tackle, and a top-tier wide receiver in areas that you all need. Is that worth the price of a fourth and a next year third to you? I think the answer should be yes. Number 25, Chicago Bears. You could talk about the option of a tackle like Caleb Tiernan. I think would be a massive upgrade, but I personally don't think the organization will give up on Ozzie Trapilo so fast. I think they'll try to cross-train him and see how that works. So edge rusher is a big thing. If we did have TJ Parker, that would be instantly my move. I personally would like to trade out of this spot as well if I can. And since I know that the Bears are going to be calling, like Poles will be on the phone, and he's going to hit up the Titans right now and say, by the way, I'm talking to some other teams that are looking at wide receiver. I think the Saints could be an intriguing option. The Jets absolutely could be in the mood to make another move up just to be able to secure a top weapon like Casey Concepcion. But there are other teams as well that could end up sneaking in. The Rams being one of them. The Rams love to make moves. They also have now had 2 first-round picks. So all that being said, I think this is a very scary spot for the Titans and a key opportunity for Borgonzi to say, I moved down and got my draft capital. Now we can end up just making sure that this was not all in vain. So 28 to 25 is not going to be anything more than like a pick 120 to 150. So I'm giving up 101 and asking for pick number 129 in return. For the Bears, this is a 28 spot move up for a 3-spot drop. I think this would make sense for both teams because the Titans need to get wide receiver talent. Their first pick, Ruben Bain Jr., you still get the final wide receiver that should be pretty much a wide receiver 1/2 in the draft. At number 26 for the Los Angeles Chargers, quick and easy, Vega is here. We got extra draft capital, and we ended up getting a stud. Also, just think, if the Buffalo Bills sat here, they would not have possibly Sonny Styles nor the wide receivers. Sometimes you just got to be aggressive. Number 27, the Seattle Seahawks. Boundary corner definitely makes a ton of sense to me. Keith Abney could be someone who I really like for this team. I do believe they like a little bit more the athleticism, which would lean me more towards Avion Terrell, who has a lot of very similar instincts, in my opinion, to Devon Witherspoon, maybe at a lower level, because Devon was someone who graded very, very well for me. I think interior offensive line is very possible. Emmanuel Pregnon, 100% someone who you should consider here. But I love the idea of going boundary corner when the value makes sense. And Avion Terrell's a top 25. Number 25. So top 25 player on my board. And that's somebody that I want to invest in. We're going to go Avion Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. At number 28, we're back with the Bears. And again, not going to go running back. I will say linebacker is a position that might need to be studied because we got to see if Ruben Hippolyte can do some, but the linebacking core not necessarily secure for the long haul. But I do think nose tackle probably is your best value at this point based on us having pick 57. Like, I just think there's going to be good edge value there. I usually like to go Zion Young, but even now I do think, especially with him dropping in terms of the pass rush win rate, we can end up trying to play the long game for that. So I will be going after best player available. And, this is someone who deserves a regrade from me. But for the Bears, their nose tackle has been absolute garbage. Grady Jarrett, just a shell of himself. Get someone who's young, talented, electric, and call it a day. Caden McDonald, defensive interior out of The Ohio State University. At number 29, Los Angeles Rams, first pick, Spencer Fano. Here at number 29, quick and easy. I see Keith Abney available here. I'm taking him all day. I think his talent is supreme. He's physical. You don't need to be the best physical or best athletic corner to be on the Rams. You just need to be damn good. And that's exactly what Keith Abney is. He's just a definition of skilled, powerful, and effective. Number 30, New England Patriots. They did not have a first pick. I'm so not used to this. The Patriots, were either, well, I guess I am kind of used to it in my life, but not when I've been doing draft stuff. I've not usually been this far down. But to me, I do believe this is a quick and easy one with Emmanuel Pregnon. I have him as a top 15 player at number 12 on my board. He's a left guard who has a ton of power, great athleticism, and on top of that, you get to move Jared Wilson to center. I don't think there's a better move on the board. If you think there is, by all means, please tell me. But if you're going to say edge rusher, please wait till day 2 because I promise you we'll be getting at least something in the rotation there. But Emmanuel Pregnon, do not look at the PFF grade. It is not up to date. I know that for a fact. I know it for 100% fact. There are many people who have Emmanuel Pregnon in their top 32, and getting him at 30 is a blessing. Number 31 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Boundary corner 2. Position that you should be open to, but I don't see the value here. Again, Jermod McCoy considered returning in this. But number 31, wide receiver. Not going to take a wide receiver 4 at this point. Also, don't think the value is there. If you see Chris Bell, maybe if you feel uncomfortable with A.J. Brown, that's something you could discuss. Tight end wise, there's not one that I really like here. And tackle wise, I do like Caleb Tiernan. I don't really think of him as the long-term option at right tackle. Trevor Gooseby would be the player who I'm looking at here. And Trevor, I will just say this. I don't see many teams really lurking. Well, I will say, I know myself. I know how I'd end up approaching this sitting as the Giants GM. Even though I think Illuminor will stay, Trevor Gooseby needs that year of development as well. I would believe that probably if I'm sitting there with the Giants pick, I'd say I get to screw over the Eagles and I get to have my future right tackle. Even though, again, all loved Marcus Bowe, friend of the show, I don't think that stops me from A, upgrading at right tackle, but B, also weakening the Eagles. And then think about the Cowboys. They absolutely could be open to a right tackle. So, you know what? If you're saying here as the Eagles, you're also saying I'm relieving the Giants and I'm relieving the Cowboys of the opportunity to upgrade their right tackle spot. We're going Trevor Gooseby, tackle out of Texas. He has played right tackle before in the past. Lane Johnson cannot stay healthy. You need a long-term answer at right tackle. That's the move. Number 32 and the last pick of the draft for today, we have the Denver Broncos. And Denver Broncos, honestly, I do think that, Christian Miller here too, ridiculous value. I think this is a great spot to move back. I've been saying that. I think it is. I've been Anthony Hilling first round, but after reevaluating him today in all 22, I don't see it. I really don't. Same thing with CJ Allen. I like him a lot. I love the fit, but it's like part of me just wants to say, calm the fuck down, guys. I mean, the linebackers are the hardest position to translate to the NFL, and these guys are not overly polished. So I will say, is there anybody worth moving up for? I would like to circle Christian Miller here. That is one of them. Amari Washington, some people want to talk about as well. I don't think he's in that same realm, even though some people believe he is. I do think Caleb Tiernan needs to at least be discussed at this point. Dylan Thieneman as well, but trading up for a safety, not usually the best juju for teams to kind of do that. Honestly, it's a pretty tough spot. But is there any team that's going to be looking for something unique that you want a 5th-year contract for? So the Saints, I'm not going to have them move up for a second defensive player in Christian Miller. That doesn't make sense. The Jets, you could try to get Christian Miller on that 5th-year contract. I do know they like their defensive interiors, but maybe not to that degree. So that is something I'm open to. And for the Broncos, I'd be very much open to that as well. For the Raiders, I don't really think we're just a little bit too far once again for me to make a decisive move with them. Like, again, what would I go and trade up for at this point? I don't really think there's anybody worth it. So I actually really do like the Jets move here, though. I really do. Because the Jets need to be decisive. They have a shit ton of draft capital, like to the point where it's almost an embarrassment of riches. And, personally, if I'm the Jets, I'm going to give up pick number 105 for this. It's a 5-spot move up. And I do think you get something in return. That pick will be 171. So for a 5-spot move back, you technically are getting kind of like shafted a little bit as part of this deal. Like, maybe you can end up giving 253 and getting 245 back. You can get a little bit of a move up. But for this, you get that 5th-year contract as well. That's why that does really, really matter. And again, you could toss in 139 if it butt hurts you that much. But the New York Jets go Fernando Mendoza. And last but not least, an absolute superstar on the defensive interior, Christian Miller out of Georgia. I do think that 5th-year contract is very important, especially for a developing team. And this is a talented player that I also don't think many other positions will be very helpful to the Jets at that spot. That's the video. Stay tuned tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3. I'll see you later. Peace.